right, thank you for staying with Daybreak. It's the State of the Nation conversation continues right now, and it's all about the schools reopening amid the floods. But the Kenya Meteorological Department says the rains will subside, except there are still some schools that are under floods. And Honorable John Newton, before we went for the break, we're still talking about counties and their ability to withstand this sort of pressure and the 2%. But is it practical to expect that over the time they've made some savings, considering that the money doesn't come when it is scheduled to come? The DG has just said that the money for March has not reflected now, and we're in April.
Thank you, Trevor. And I think that issue was dealt with very well by Honorable Ote. I mean, funds may not have been disbursed for the month of March and April. But then what about the previous years? What about the months where, because these days we have a very good disbursement schedule, actually. I think it's only this fiscal challenge that we have that has not enabled the national government to disburse monies for, I think, March now and April. But what has been happening in previous years? Of course, when we were off air, the DG Kisumu told us that his county is unique in that they have floods every year. But what about other counties? Where have they been taking how have they been expending these emergency funds that they are supposed to set aside every year, 2%? And I think those are the questions that we need to ask ourselves. The other thing that, Trevor, I want to say is that counties are not sincere with us. When they keep talking about devolved functions, that when they have money, the Honorable DG from Kisumu has said that they would rather spend their emergency fund on ECD centers and VTCs, because, of course, those are the devolved areas of education. But then why I say counties are not sincere is because when it comes to a situation like this, they now want to talk about devolved functions. But we know they give bursaries to high school students. We know they give bursaries even to university students. Not on emergency. Why? No, of course, not on emergency. Not on emergency. In fact, with emergencies, like the Honorable Ote has said, we should not be talking about devolved functions. It's where the emergency happens. But they will want to talk about their devolved functions, that they will only deal with ECDs and VTCs. But we know they stray into national government functions when they give bursaries to high school students. And we have no problem with that. Let me not be misunderstood to mean that I do not want counties, we do not want counties to give out bursaries to high schools and universities. But then they should not do that at the expense of their devolved at the expense of ECDs and VTCs. So there should be that balance. So, and I want to I think, add more weight to that other point, that emergencies, when they happen, it's an emergency. Wherever it is, whether it's a devolved function or whether it's a function that is not devolved, I think it's an emergency. But counties should be honest with the Kenyans, tell them how they have been expending the monies that they have been setting aside every year, like Honorable Ote said, since 2013, especially in counties where there have not been major emergencies to talk about. So I think it's about being honest with the electorate. It's about being honest with Kenyans. But we are not here to say that the national government should not get involved. What we are saying, like I had said before, let us see, everyone doing what they can. The little effort everybody can make, so that, because all of us, the national government serves the same Kenyans with the county governments. CDF serves the same Kenyans. So all of us should be able to take part in dealing with this emergency.
DG. Your response to this?
Just for the record, that counties have taken care of these emergencies and disasters holistically. We have provided food rations, we have provided medical supplies, we have provided non-food items, we have reconstructed roads, all over. It is known. But now we are talking about reconstruction of schools and schools reopening. Now, schools reopening is not just high school, it's not just primary school. our ECD centers need to reopen. Our vocational training centers need to reopen. And so I still repeat, and I mean, I should be on record on this one, that in the reconstructions of schools and in ensuring that normalcy, is attained in that space, counties would rather, with the little resources they have, first of all, focus on their core responsibility, which is the early childhood education, ensure that the young ones have, a conducive learning environment in this situation, ensure that our vocational training centers, where our youth are going to acquire the skills that they need for them, either to be employed or to run their own businesses or to do, their own stuff. Is assured. But again, to just ask my brother here, the member of parliament, he's talking about savings that he believes countries should have made. I don't know whether you can look at Kenyans right here on the face and tell them how much savings you made from CDF, even just for the period that you have been a member of parliament. But you also served as a deputy governor for the first, between 2013 and 2017. I don't know how much money or savings you would have made at that time. I mean, Kenyans will be willing to know how much you made in terms of savings from your CDF allocations.
Well, it's a direct question. I'll allow you to respond. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, so he's asking a question which I'm supposed to respond to Kenyans in terms of the savings. Well, I think it is important that when a question such as how much savings counties have been able to save for the last 10 years, because emergencies don't occur in every year, and yet allocations are coming every year. So when that kind of a question is asked to the member sitting here as panelist, the DG for Kisumu, he just needed, first of all, to answer and say, this is a much, instead of throwing it back to me, asking how much we've saved in CDF. In CDF, we do constructions of schools, and we have actually been doing constructions of schools. Every year, we allocate funding as well for emergencies. And we do emergencies in the constituencies, and emergencies are different. So I will not be able to talk about all the CDF savings because I am not in consolidation of the figures from all the CDF the constituencies. But I can be able to speak about my constituency. This year, we have received funding, and 2% of the funding is supposed to go for emergencies. And the reason why I told you I am ready, to go the direction the president has said, that we're going to reallocate funding for reconstructions of school. And so for this year, because I've only been a member of parliament, this is now going to my second year, this year we will be able to use the funding that we will have used last year for emergencies, because last year we did construct toilets, which were sinking in my constituency, which were emergencies. So the figure that remained was little, because if you compare what the county government gets in billions with what the paltry the CDFs get in millions, you will actually say that I was able to use that in construction of toilets. Now this year, I have not been able to use the emergencies, but an emergency has occurred, and the president has called on me and members of parliament to be able to use the figure to reconstruct schools, which I am going to do. So the figure is little, my brother, for the CDF. But the figure that we are asking, and I'll still continue asking, how much money out of the 8 billion, close to annual allocation for emergencies for counties, is now available for us to deal with this emergency that is with us now. So I will ask you back the question, how much of this amount of money, 8 billion annually, is there now to help the national government to be able to mitigate the effects of this flooding? Okay.
As for Kisumu, have you made any savings?
Well, the reason I asked the question to Lote is because I'm yet to hear this member of parliament or this government agency having made any savings. We are operating under very, very stringent budget, almost shoestring. Yeah, it is not possible. Normally, budgets are reassigned based on the needs. That's why people do supplementary budgets based on the needs. Okay, because the needs are immense. He has not told us if they made any savings at all when he was the deputy governor for 5 years. Okay, and I bet the reason why he's not saying that is because, if there was any savings in any sector, okay, or in any department, they would allocate it based on the needs, the general needs of what? Of the county. And I can tell you, he cannot demonstrate in his, when he'll be have served his 5 years, how much he will have saved.
Yeah.
Okay,
Because there's not enough money.
Yeah, because I'm sure, like in his place, there's quite a bit of needs. I mean, if you had enough money, you'd have built all permanent structures for your high schools and for your primary schools.
Okay.
You would have built for them all, proper toilets. Yeah, you would have given bursaries to all the young ones who are bright and are not capable to do what? To go to school. Okay. Yet we know that even in your county and in your constituency, there are many kids who probably are staying at home because they can't go to school. Okay. And why? Because you do not have enough resources to help them achieve that dream. All right. Yeah, so let's be honest with ourselves.
Well, let me bring in Nuju on this and segue a bit. We're still talking about resources.
Yes.
The government has now allocated part of the 1 billion Lotte was talking about. Part of it is supposed to compensate those who've lost their livelihoods, 10,000 shillings. The Azimio team says that's too little, too late. In fact, those are their words. They say each family should get at least 100,000 shillings.
Thank you, Trevor. And I think the issue of the 10,000 that the president promised, I think it all depends on where somebody stands. We are talking about, I think, when the president made that particular promise and directive, I think he was in one of the slums in Nairobi, and so, we needed to, the first thing we needed was to evacuate people who are living along or on riparian land. The first thing that we needed was to save their lives. And I saw there was a lot of noise about even demolition of those structures that were that many of our people were living in. Yeah. But then I think the first thing that we were supposed to think about, and I think that is what informed the president's decision, was saving those affected from the possible death. 10,000 has been, there are people who think that it is too little. But Trevor, I think the people who think 10,000 is too little are people who think that everybody lives the kind of life they live. They are imagining of people with the sofa sets, with the big beds, because I've heard somebody say that it is not even enough to transport their household items. But Trevor, we are talking about people living in sometimes maybe 10 by 10 foot room. I mean, they may not have so many items. And 10,000 may not be as little. You can get, for a start, somebody can get maybe somewhere to live for about maybe a rent of about 1,000, 2,000 for the time being. And maybe even because even their livelihoods have been affected, maybe even spend some part of that money to do some small business. Because again, when people think about business, especially people who have not led that kind of life, they think of businesses that need hundreds of thousands or millions to start. But I'm telling you, most of the people living in those areas, 5,000, and that is why I also support the idea of the Hustler Fund, 5,000 will be a good amount of money to do some business. You buy some bananas, for resale. You buy some cabbages, some sukuma for resale. And so this money should not be looked down upon. The 10,000 was a good amount of money. We are not saying it's enough. Nobody has enough money. We are not saying it is enough, but it was a good gesture. It was a good starting point for the people that are affected, at least to get somewhere to live for at least a month. Yeah. As government looks at what more can be done. The president did not say that is the only amount they're going to receive. I mean, it was an amount that was supposed to, it's an emergency to help them maybe move and do one or two things as government looks at what more can be done.
Lotte, is 10,000 shillings reasonable for people who are opening schools on Monday? Their books have been washed away. They don't have a place to go. Is that a reasonable allocation?
Well, first of all, let us appreciate what the government has been able to do. To be able to promise 10,000 shillings for 40,000 households for 3 months, that translates to 1.2 billion Kenya shillings. In this country, before you expend, you have to have a budget. And the budget is supposed to be approved by Parliament. in an emergency situation, what the president has done is to scratch the situation, be able to respond at the point that is required. And first, I want to appreciate the president, because for the first time, I saw the president on gumboots and in a muddy area. I don't think there is any other president in this country that has ever walked to a slum in a particular situation like we saw. And so the president himself, first of all, empathized with the situation. The fact that he was able to go to Mathare, not at the high end of Mathare, but to the mud itself, basically tells you the president wanted action to be taken. So 10,000 shillings is quite a substantive amount of money for the 40,000 households for 3 months. It basically means the president wants to elevate the situation. Trevor, let me ask you, the opposition leaders that are making all this noise, how much have they contributed? The only contribution I saw was 2 million shillings from the former president, Uhuru Kenyatta, to the Red Cross. And the Red Cross is asking for 8 billion shillings.
The ODM team
so
also
first
gave
of all,
1 million shillings.
The
ODM team...
the whole team gave 1 million shillings, and they are asking for the government to give 100,000 shillings. First of all, let me ask, what informs of the 100,000 shillings? What have they sat down to say 100,000 shillings do in a month? If you look at the budgets of these households, the household that the president is talking about, per month, those households do not even probably have a budget of more than 10,000. And so for them to start beating their chest and say the government should be allocating 100,000, yet in normal situation, normal circumstances, they themselves cannot help these families even get 10 shillings per day, is hypocrisy. We need to appreciate what the president has done, just to say, at the onset, each family is going to get 10,000. That translates to 1.2 billion. That is a substantive amount of money in this country. The president then has done something good. And I think the next thing is there's a team that has been set. And the president himself has been sitting in this team, the emergency response team, to see what other things can be done. And so, like what the senator is saying, it is not all that the government has said they need to do. That was just but to be able to elevate the situation at that particular point. Probably going forward, we might want to start seeing what the government is going to do more. And I think the president said, we are also putting up houses, structures, the affordable houses, so that in future, because we also need to be futuristic in terms of our looking, in future, we do not see houses being swept, the Mabati houses being swept. We have structures that can be able to contain Kenyans. So I think the president was just responding at the point that is needed. So it is, for me, it is adequate, it is enough to elevate the situation. I asked this question for the last time.
Yeah.
The government that has been there, the government of Kibaki, at the post-election violence of 2007, the government of Uhuru, we have had emergencies. Have you ever had a declaration such as this?
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me bring in DG on this. DG, there's a view team which you belong to says that this is not enough.
Well, first of all, we made our position very clear yesterday, at least from the press address that was done by our deputy coalition leader, His Excellency Kalonzo Musyoka. And we are very clear in our mind that what the president is offering those who lost their property and need to rebuild their lives in Mathare is basically tokenism. Okay, little too late. But allow me to say the following. My brother here is saying that, you know, the president for the first time went to Mathare in gumboots. I want to let him know that the president's visit to Mathare the other day was basically reactionary. And you know that, yeah? You know that.
No, I don't know that.
It's because of what had happened previously. And I know probably we'll talk about that, you know, here. Now, if you offer somebody who has lost all his property, who has to settle kids back in school, who has to go and look for a new house, and my brother here, the Senator Muranga, has attempted to budget with 10,000, and probably we need to give him that opportunity again. I think he said, oh, you can look for a house where you pay 1,000. And it would be nice for him to tell us how much, you know, these families would spend, you know, in each and every budget item to make 10,000, okay? We still maintain that this government must take care of the poor of our country, those who lost their lives. They have the money. It is not money from their pockets. My brother here is asking about what the other people have done. The last time I checked, we have members of parliament, we have governors, we have deputy governors and stuff like that. It's not about party, okay? So the government will definitely appropriate something. The leaders can themselves agree on what they'll give, but we still maintain that 10,000 is too little, okay? And we think that probably 100,000 may be a bit decent per month for the period. These guys can then go look for, new houses, buy new items, take their kids to school. I mean, the government must take care of their people. And so the government must stop being reactionary based on who has visited the site. They must not be populist, yeah? I mean, 2027 is way ahead. It is time to work, yeah? We are not voting next week or next year, yeah? So this tokenism that we see during election time, it's not time for that.
I totally.
Let them roll up their sleeves and work.
Okay.
In fact, I think the Honorable DG is contradicting himself, because he says this is not an election year, and it is true. Then he says there is tokenism. This is time for working, and it is true. So when the president offers 10,000 Kenya shillings to every family that is affected, he should know that the president is doing that because he's working. He's not campaigning.
It's not enough.
Yes. It's not enough. And I've said nobody has enough. And I think, so Trevor, even if you look at the principle of insurance, for example, I mean, anything paid by the insurance, if you place a claim, it is not supposed to make you any better. It is supposed to at least, take you back to where you are. Yes. So I think, and I have no problem with our people if it was possible, because we must not forget that we have financial and fiscal constraints. So it's not like there is an amount of money somewhere where the president would just decide, let us give it to the families affected, and the president is declining. I mean, we must remember that we have budgetary constraints. And so already, when this amount is offered to the families affected, first of all, the first thing that we should do is appreciate that there is an effort by the government. So let the members of the opposition not create an impression that government has all the money. It's just a matter of deciding to give it to these affected families or not. So we are saying, and it is a fact, with the constraints, and the DG has challenged me to say where we can get maybe a residence or a house, for that matter, for 2,000 Kenya shillings. I think he may need to know how much is paid in the areas like the one that was affected, and I think that amount, it is not enough. But it is reasonable for the time being, even as we await for more resources. Yeah. And that is why he's talking about they have not received their March allocation. It is because government, and we have been told this by many people, government does not keep money somewhere. Okay. Government gets revenue as they expend. Yes. So with the time, as government maybe collects more revenue, of course, the president is very humane. He is reactive, not proactive, actually. I mean, he's a proactive, not reactive. Sorry, he's a proactive, not reactive. And I think let's also be patient. Okay. And we will see that things are
Let's be a bit practical.
And then before you go there, please, there is also section 223, which allows any organ of government to spend the money that they have to cater for an emergency and then seek approval later. Okay. So I think that is also something that should be taken note of.
Lotte, usually in this program, I like to be practical, okay? So let's picture this. You've lost everything. Yeah. You are the way you are. Then you're given 10,000 shillings. Where do you start?
First of all, Trevor, thank you so much for that. I think you're bringing the reality in terms of the people that have always been saying serikali's idea. And I think it's not the first time. Every Kenyan that has gone through a disaster will always finish with serikali's idea. It basically means that there is a big brother called serikali that has some money that can be able to help. Saidia does not mean serikali kuja saidia shida zangu, kuja maliza shida zangu, don't come and finish my problem, but help me get through the situation. You see? So, for me, first of all, I'm perturbed by the fact that they say that the president visiting a site in Mathare was reactionary. That is not. And I think it's right that we put things into perspective. An emergency is an emergency. The president would not have planned to visit Mathare because he knew there was going to be flooding. He visited Mathare because this is an emergency that was not planned by anybody, and because it has happened, he has gone. And I said, he's the only president that has ever put on a gumboot and actually gone to the situation, the height of the situation. He doesn't sit in State House to look at the media reports and then act. They wanted to see it. So first of all, let us appreciate the fact that the president himself, not through the cabinet secretaries, himself went to see the situation and talk to the persons. He actually went into one of these houses and he sat with them. And I think at that level, he was even able to talk to these people. And it could be that these people said, if we could get 10,000, because he talked to them. He's not a president that makes calls. He's a president that goes and talks to these people.
But that's what I'm asking you. So
he might, let me say, he might have asked
that money.
He might have asked these people
10,000 shillings.
He might have asked these people, how much do you think might help you? Because he's a practical president. But then let's distribute the 10,000 shillings.
Exactly.
Like the senator said, in a slum area like Mathare, or the slum areas that are lived by these 40,000 people that the government is going to look at, if the rent is probably 2,000 shillings, then there is still a saving of 8,000 shillings. If probably food is another 2,000 shillings.
Maybe from bedding.
No, let me just say.
Yeah, let him just distribute it in his own way.
Another
So
2,000.
2,000. Food is 2,000.
Another 2,000
for the whole month.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, of course, they are provided with the makeshift shelters. In fact, rent might be something else because the same government is providing makeshift shelters for people. And so probably even the 2,000 I'm talking about is rent could be for something else. So if we do that math, I cannot go beyond shelter and food because those are the basic needs. In terms of education, I think the Ministry of Education, these are the president say, let us work on an all-inclusive government. It basically means the Ministry of Education, and I've seen from yesterday, the Minister of Education say that he himself, from Wednesday, is going to the areas, the hotspots, to check on the needs. And I think one of the needs that will come through is the school fees, because that is what gives headache to most parents. I believe the Ministry of Education then is going to help in terms of paying for the school fees of the 40,000 parents. The county government is supposed to come in. The national government constituency development fund is supposed to come in.
Yeah.
And so what the president is doing is to meet the basic needs of these people. And my question still, Trevor, is these people that are making noise, what have they contributed? 1 million shillings for a whole brigade.
No, but it's okay. We had stopped at 4,000. We've done rent 2,000, food 2,000. Okay.
The basic needs, probably transport and everything. Because I've said the school fees that has always been an
there's still
headache.
Clothes.
The school fees that has been, okay, you can buy clothes.
There's still bedding.
Your cloth because probably is 200,000.
Everything has been swept up.
Probably, Trevor, you want to buy a cloth of 200,000, your suit.
It's not about me.
I can. I'm trying to say, are the people of Mathare, if the Mitumba business is still running like I know it's running, you can still get a shirt of 100 shillings. That is good. So when you are given something to move your life out, you do not go and expend expensively. What you're going to do is try to meet your basic need by getting something that will cover you. So probably some of it will go for food, some of it will go for clothing, some of it will go for your movements from where you are.
This money is not
So I am saying the money, of course, like the senator said, we are not going to, the government is not at this point give you enough money to be able to meet all your needs. Okay. Trevor, you have actually gone to families that have been bereaved. You do not go and pay for all their expenses. You go and say Poleni, and then probably you give 10,000. That 10,000 that you give to that family will not cater for the funeral.
Okay.
Of course, you are contributing, and we expect the county government to contribute. We expect the national government to, the CDF to contribute. We expect other donors to contribute. We have seen Red Cross contributing. So let us not just try to falsify the government that has acted, because my question still remains. The previous governments I'm looking at the incidences in Salga, where families lost, in 2009, they lost loved ones because of an accident. It was a very bad accident. How much did the government give to those families? Okay. I'm looking at the 2007 post-election violence, where this country was actually banned. How much did the government give to compensate for the families that lost? It's probably zero. So what we need to say is, let us appreciate the little that the government has given instead of falsifying it. Yeah. And if you want to falsify, like these brigades of Azimio are doing, let us see them, first of all, in Gambus. Let us see them actually crying with those families in the slums. Let us see them also contributing. It doesn't mean that you need to give money from the exchequer to be seen to be helping. You also have your own money. Please give. And I want to appreciate Uhuru Kenyatta for having given 2 million. Probably you can give more to help the families.
DG, don't the legislators have a point?
First of all, I think
at least there's something that has been given.
The thing is,
it may not be enough, but
my colleagues here must accept that the Azimio coalition, through our leader, were the first responders. I mean, we were the first in Madare. That's why I was saying it was reactionary. But that said, you see, the Honorable Ote is saying that the 10,000 that the president is giving to the poor of the poor was as a result of public participation.
I did not say that. I did not say. I said because
he might have spoken.
He might have spoken. Yes, he might have spoken. He actually sat with those people in the house.
Yeah, so that's what you're trying to say. That he may have asked them, so how much money do you need? And then they said 10,000. But that's a matter for another day. Now, there's a situation here that I think we really need to make very, very clear. The last time I checked, Trevor, the government of Kenya was for all Kenyans. Yeah? If there was any money given, and I'm hoping that the 10,000 has been given. I don't know that you're going to confirm that. Maybe you'll confirm that. I'm hoping it has been given. If it has been given, it has been given on behalf of all Kenyans, whether they're in the opposition or whether in Kenya Kwanza, because all of us pay what? Pay taxes. So this idea of what the other side has not done, when you yourself, as a Kenyan and myself and yourself, and maybe Trevor there, has not done anything on their own. I mean, we could have done. Okay, personally I've done. I'm not going to talk about that here. But you cannot ask what I have done as a member of the opposition, okay, when you have not done anything as a person. And if you've done something as government, it is really on our behalf as a country. Now, the other thing is that you've been talking about savings. Oh, counties have not made these savings. Oh, counties have not made these savings. Again, for the record, I have not even part of government. I joined government in 2017, but even in 2013, I've always supported the opposition. So if you talk about the Kibaki government, all these kind of things, you may know better. But tell me, how much savings has the national government done, in line with the question that you asked me, that they cannot use now to sort out the issues of Kenyans, right now that we are in problems? You talked about savings. So tell us about the savings that the national government has done that they are not going to use to give the Mathare people a decent, start to life, to ensure that they can buy books, uniform, pay fees. Not everybody who is in Mathare, by the way, is going to a government school. Actually, government has done very poorly in terms of, building schools in the slum areas. I lived in Kibera for the better part of my life, and I know what it means to live in those areas. Yeah. So again, as I said, we must forget about tokenism. We must forget about thinking about the next election. It is time to work. Let us do what is reasonable. Let us appropriate money that is reasonable and that will make a difference in the lives of our people.
Okay, let me bring in some feedback real quick. And then speaking of elections, there was a conversation earlier on after criticism from the Azimio Brigade. There was a reaction from the UDA team saying that the leader of Azimio, Raila Odinga, should tone it down, considering that the president is helping him try to achieve the AUC position. But let's see your feedback first, and then we'll get into that discussion, whether the government accepts criticism or not, and whether Raila should tone down or not. That's a conversation that we're coming up in just a bit. But let's bring up your feedback and see what you're saying. At Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya, use the hashtag Daybreak. Let's see the first one here. Remy Butia says, as the floods recedes, we can either continue down this path or make a collective re-evaluation of how we manage risk. It means we must revisit the policies that guide how we cope with floods in our changing climate. Okay? Engineer Lazaro says situation still not favorable, especially in hard-hit areas. Parents comes in most of schools, and some of them face dire consequences after losing their medication. Government should conduct proper assessments before exposing children. Okay? Babu Michael says when schools reopening was postponed last week, I expected the national and county governments through the Council of Governors to sit down and do a proper assessment about the affected schools, giving clear data to act on. This didn't happen. Why? Sir Nixon says what's almost certain is that this year's exams may not be fair at all to all students, considering that most of them won't recover their losses fast, like those who lost everything through floods, unless recovery time is fairly equal to everyone. Tim says floods and droughts should give Kenya Kwanza a desire to look into the quality of construction and infrastructure, roads, dams, schools, irrigation schemes, drainage, and quoted properly, but done in a shoddy manner to save money for eaters. Okay. Bob Otieno says, can DG Mr. Willie tell us how prepared Kisumu County was against floods due to heavy rains now that the national government has ordered for reopening of schools and residents stranded in schools and some are submerged? Okay.